gap in knowledge. Gap in knowledge. What is gap in knowledge? What is the research gap? They call it gap in knowledge, or you could call it research gap, or you could call it, knowledge gap. Now, when you look at when you do a literature review, you are looking at studies. You are looking at studies done by other scholars within the same area or in related fields. That is, if you are doing, for instance, a study on public relations, you want to check the influence of public relations on banking. That is, influence of public relations on patronage, influence of public relations strategies on patronage of banks. You want to check that. Then when you're doing a literature review, you are going to be looking at works done in public relations, probably as has to do with banks or as it has to do with other firms, but you are checking how these studies, the results from these studies, as it has to do with how public relations influences patronage. So when you look at all these studies, at the end of the day, you don't just do literature review. No, you're looking for gap in knowledge. You're looking for research gap. You're looking for knowledge gap. That is, what is it that these other scholars did not do? What is it in these studies? You've looked at the studies. What is missing in the studies that you have reviewed? That is the research gap. It's possible that you could find that most of the works on public relations and banking were done in the Western world, but not in your own country. Probably you are in an African country. Probably you are doing a study in Nigeria or a state in Nigeria, and all the studies you saw on banking probably were done by the Western world. So the gap, the research gap there, could simply be the fact that the work has not been localized. So gap in knowledge is simply saying what has been left undone. What is it that these wonderful studies did not do? What is it that these wonderful studies did not focus on? And that is what your own work will focus on, and that is what the gap your own work will fill. So every work has to be channeled towards filling a gap in knowledge. If you're not able to identify research gap, then your work is not significant. So you see, it could be that a particular work, the gap in knowledge could be that a particular work has been done, yes, in Nigeria, for instance, it's been done in Nigeria, but not in the community where you want to do the study. It could also be that a particular work has been done in that community, but after some years, nobody has replicated it, because it may be necessary to replicate the work to be sure of the findings, or to further emphasize the findings or buttress the theory used. So there is always a gap in knowledge. There is always research gap which your work wants to fill. The gap in knowledge is the discrepancy between what is known and what should be known. That is to say, what is known, what have other scholars done in this field, that's what is known. And then what should be known, what is it that these scholars left undone, or what is it that requires focus in this area of study. If it is a study on exposure to the internet and how it influences academic performance, it's possible that it has checked most of the studies worked on teenagers or worked on undergraduates, but none of the studies has looked at probably adults or those in adult education or those that are doing PhD, because most times you check, it's possible that you are studying first degree students because we feel that they are the ones that are exposed to the internet, but you've not done on sandwich students, you've not done on PhD students or something like that. So you see that there is always a gap in knowledge. You take a close look at the work you're doing. The easiest way to identify gap in knowledge is to look at your area of study. You could look at that is area of study in terms of, if it is survey, the locality you're focusing on, the community you're focusing on, the state you're focusing on, how many works have been done there. If works have been done, another way to observe to find out gap in knowledge is the methodology. It is possible that they use, many of the scholars that have worked in this area used survey or used content analysis, but none has used focus group discussion, none has used interview technique, or none has combined the two. It is possible that this work has been done in this area, but nobody has checked it from the perspective of the theory of study. You could be using a particular theory to study that work, unlike what the other scholars did. So gap in knowledge is easy if you take your time to check the works of others which you reviewed in the section under literature review. Check the works reviewed under literature review, What is it that many scholars have done? Is it that the works have been done only in Western world, or they've been done in Nigeria, but within a particular segment of the society? Probably they've been done as it has to do with women or men or children, or is it in terms of methodology? The methodology they used, most people used, is different from the one you want to use. There must be gap in knowledge, and once your work fills that gap, it becomes very significant. So you see, it is close to, and it's a part of the problem of study. There could be other problems of study, but your work will contribute to knowledge in that particular area of study, be it advertising, public relations, whether it is internet studies, whether it has to do with new media studies, broadcasting, whether it's revenge pornography, whatever you want to study. Maybe you want to do a study on development communication. The fact is, before you carry out the study, there is need to be sure of the research gap, which your work will fill in. And we have said that research gap has to do with the discrepancy between what is known and what should be known. That is, what has been done and what is it that has been left undone. What did the other works I looked at focus on, and what is it that they have not focused on? They have not focused on, or what is it? What is it that they are missing that your work wants to include in that study? What is it that remains to be done or to be learned in an area of research? That is the research gap.